Good morning and welcome to the ONCIMMUNE Holdings PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and they can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll. And I would now like to hand you over to CEO Martin Goldstone. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Thanks very much. Welcome everybody to our investor update for ONCIMMUNE, reflecting back on last year's results, but also reflecting forward on progress to date and what we may see happening this year. The usual disclaimer. So what I'd like to take you through today is our FY23 headlines and financials together with Martin Hudson, my FD, and a recap on the strategy I announced in October last year, and also our progress against that strategy and some thoughts on the outlook for our FY24. So the presenting team today is myself, Martin Goldstone. I'm the CEO of ONCIMMUNE. I've been here since the beginning of August last year. I've been in the pharmaceutical industry about 30 years across pharma, biotech, CRO and corporate finance, where I was an M&A partner in a boutique firm. And I'll hand you over to Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, Martin Hudson, I'm Finance Director. I've been with the company since September last year, so about 6 months into the role now. Previous experience largely in the automotive motorsport industries, so enjoying life very much in this industry so far.
Thank you, Martin. Next slide. So in terms of the headlines for FY23, the main headline obviously was the successful sale of the early lung CDT business to Freenome in California. And alongside that, but separately, signing an MSA, 5-year MSA with them with a 2-year break, with annual minimum revenues of 1.14 million euros. We are now approaching the end of the first year of that agreement. There is a break clause of 2 years, and in our financial modelling, we have prudently only assumed a 2-year span of those revenues, but obviously we're working hard behind the scenes with Freenome to see if we can extend that. We have refocused the business onto the ImmunoInsights platform in Dortmund. My role very much is to maximise the commercial value of the ImmunoInsights platform in its markets, but also to maximise the scientific value and breadth of that ImmunoInsights platform. And that has been the cornerstone of thinking behind the strategy that I will update you on later in the presentation. We reprofiled the debt facility with IPF following the sale of the early lung CDT business. Some of the debt was paid down from the proceeds of that sale. We announced the new senior management team towards the end of the last FY23 year end in August, and I joined formally at the start of August, so at the end of our FY23. We also began to implement the board changes, which I announced last time on this format, on this call. So our board is now much more trimmed down and much more industry focused, with Alistair McDonald as the chair, who was the CEO of Syneos Health, a global CRO, and Sally Waterman, who heads our REMCOM, who is also on the board of several oncology biotechs, as well as John Gould, who used to lead the Zeus Capital Brokerage and is our city and investor relations outward-facing person. Next slide, please. I'd like to hand over now to Martin Hudson to walk you through the top line for the FY23 financials.
Thank you very much. So you would have seen, of course, that the FY23 annual report was published last week. I obviously won't be going into every detail that's contained in that annual report, but just to pick out a few highlights, starting with the disposal and financing, just going back to that earlier message that FY23, so the period up to 31st of August 2023, was definitely a year of change for the business. The accounting for the disposal resulted in a gain on disposal of £12.2 million, and that's all detailed in the annual report. Effectively, it was 1.3 million of sale proceeds, and then the majority of the rest were net liabilities disposed of. So that gave rise to the 12.2 million gain on disposal. The next three bullet points there relating to the financing are, as was detailed at the time of the disposal back in May 2023. So just to recap quickly, there's 1.3 million pounds in escrow that is in escrow until May 2024. So in about 2 or 3 months' time, that money will be coming out of escrow. We at that point took the opportunity to reprofile the debt, as Martin mentioned already. So at that point, a total of 7.2 million euros was paid down in loan capital and interest. And then that leaves us, as we currently stand today, with 6 million euros worth of debt remaining. So those are the highlights on the disposal and financing. Moving on to the financial performance of FY23 itself, I've picked on or chosen to highlight the continuing operations numbers here. Those are obviously what we're focused on now, post the strategy reset of the business that Martin mentioned already. So we showed 1.2 million of revenue in our ImmunoInsights business in FY23. I should say that the FY22 comparators on this slide relate to the 15-month period up to the 31st of August 2022. So there is a slight kind of difference in duration in terms of these comparators here. Gross profit for FY23 was 0.8, admin expenses were around 5 million, and that led to a loss of 6.2 million pounds for the year. Those latter points there, I guess, reiterate what we've mentioned previously around our cost base being between 5 and 6 million per year. Martin and I have certainly taken the opportunity since we've arrived in the business to take a real sharp look at all of our costs. And whilst it is largely a business that has fixed costs rather than many sort of variable costs as we deliver projects, we have taken the opportunity to trim costs where possible, just to make sure that we give ourselves the maximum cash runway possible. And that leads me on to the final bullet point on this slide relating to the cash balance. So at the end of FY23, we had 3.2 million pounds. That compared to 1.4 million at the same point the year previously. So net cash inflow for the year, 1.8 million. And as I say, we're managing that cash position carefully to make sure that we kind of give the strategy reset that we mentioned towards the end of last year sufficient time to take hold. So with that, I shall hand back to Martin.
Thank you, Martin. So just to recap on the strategy that we announced at the beginning of October last year. So the strategy was to enter different market verticals to help accelerate or diversify the number of commercial contracts that we were generating. So historically, the business was pretty well penetrated into large top 25 pharma, but that had the knock-on effect of a small number of large projects that could be halted or changed for strategic reasons at the large pharma's end at short notice, which would adversely affect revenue flow and revenue quality. So we've expanded from those top 25 pharma into large biopharma, which tend to be, in some instances, as large as the mid-sized pharmas and a bit more nimble and a bit more innovative in their outlook and thinking. And also to work with CROs in partnership to leverage their greater commercial reach to help us win additional projects through those CROs. And I can give you an update on the CRO model as well. Expand the business model beyond pure price per sample to a more strategic partnerships model. And that would include more models along the lines of the phenome type deals with a prefixed amount per annum on a use it or lose it basis. Also to expand from price per sample to more project-based financing type deals and deals where we are looking at co-development of actual products in either companion diagnostics or prognostics. Those focus areas have been immediate, short term, medium term, 3 to 6 months, and longer term. For the purposes of funding requirements, we are not really looking to the longer term projects at the moment. We're really focused on maximising what we have in hand and also what we can get to very quickly with little investment and small amounts of effort in the medium term. Next slide, please. In terms of the way we developed this strategy, we looked at our internal strengths. We looked in terms of where we had IP and know-how, access to materials, technology, access to key opinion leaders, and our strength of credibility in those areas already. And then we matched that against the commercial opportunity assessment. So what did we see in terms of market size, market opportunity, and customers, and new business model feasibility? Next slide, please. So progress against this strategy. So this is a summary slide of the strategy as we presented it in October. And where you see the lighter, smaller coloured bubble, those are the key areas of focus we identified. If I revisit the slide itself, we have the level of commercial opportunity score on the y-axis and the internal strength score on the x-axis. Obviously, the ideal is to have opportunities in that top right-hand box. So the smaller, lighter coloured circle has some of the areas of focus that we really decided we needed to focus on for the business, both commercially but also scientifically. So you have IgE, the ability to identify IgE in serum samples. That is a non-trivial problem because IgG, which is the main immunoglobulin in human blood sera, is present at many thousands of times the concentration of IgE. So picking IgE out amongst that background is a non-trivial exercise, and we've made great strides in being able to do that and do that at scale. So that's a major scientific advance for the business. Cardiotox is a common side effect in clinical trials for checkpoint inhibitors in oncology clinical trials, and CRS, or cytokine storms as they're colloquially known, is also a known side effect profile for immuno-oncology therapy. In addition, we're seeing a great deal of interest and funding into longevity and aging, not less driven by people like Jeff Bezos, who have more money than God, but have realized that they will meet God regardless of that money, and therefore want to ameliorate that process by investing heavily in longevity startups, and neuroscience, neurodegeneration, and last but not least, on the metabolic side, diabetes, where increasingly autoantibodies and the body's immune system response are known to be or interesting in the development of type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So if we move on to the next slide and keep going, what we're showing is the progress we've made in those key strategic areas since we last presented to you in October. So what you'll see immediately is the small yellow bubble has moved to the right, which is the goal that what we wanted to achieve, and that has been because we have made significant progress in the identification of IgE in blood serum, and in fact have a commercial contract in place with a major pharmaceutical company looking at this very area. Longevity and aging has moved up the curve in terms of commercial attractiveness. There's a lot of focus in this area and a lot of investment dollars being put into this area, particularly in the US. And we have signed a discovery type deal in the longevity and aging space, which has obviously helped us to move that box up along. Cardiotox, again, we've signed a product deal in this area, and diabetes, we feel, is showing a lot more interest in companies looking at applying autoimmune response into that area. We moved neuroscience down because we see less interest in that area commercially. And CIDP is a very specific neuro area of interest where we have 3 major pharmaceutical companies all talking to us about that area of the business, hence that's moved up. And IgE, we've been able to move across in terms of allergy because we've been able to move the ability to identify IgE antibodies in blood serum, as I've said before. So what you can see here is we've made, I think, significant strides in a relatively short space of time against our core strategic areas that we are focusing on to develop more revenues into the business. Next slide. So progress today. So when I first presented this slide to the investors in October, this was the status of our discussions, commercial discussions, against these new strategy areas. So you can see it's a fairly mixed bag with a couple of more advanced discussions where we're actually already generating data, and a lot of either early discussions or we were at the stage of proposals. We move forward to the next slide, please. So this is the state of play by December 2023. So we had made significant progress in identifying new partners for some of the new areas and indeed signing deals. And next slide, please. So what you can see here is that we've really ramped up progress even since then. So we announced 4 new contracts signed against the strategy in November of last year. We have now increased that to 7 new contracts signed against the strategy, and we have other contracts in process in the hopper ready for sign. Next slide, please. So new growth opportunities. I mentioned longevity and aging on the strategy summary slide. We've been doing some work internally. We've got a white paper on this where we're looking at applying our platform, how we can apply our platform to address some of the scientific questions, key scientific questions around longevity and aging. And we believe that by applying simple chemical reactions to our existing antigen platform and our existing antigen library, we can actually produce modified age-related proteins. So these could become markers for age-related conditions. Now, aging obviously affects the entire body, but there are certain fundamental processes of aging that occur, which have already been identified, and which we believe we can identify through our platform. So this is the basis of some work we'll be doing in the next months to look at addressing the market space and seeing where we can apply this application of our technology platform. Next slide, please. So I will now update you on our marketing strategy. So we are going to rebrand the business. We're looking into this, and we are on the verge of signing up a partner to work with us to rebrand the business, rename the business. And that is based on some work we've been doing in the background, not just the strategy that I've outlined to you, but we've also, and I'll go on to describe this, we have revamped our mission, revisited our vision and values, and we are starting to communicate those externally to our market as well. And the revamp will include the website, and obviously we will need to revamp some of our materials. We've successfully revamped our sales materials and upgraded our case studies, so they're much more, I think, robust and compelling, and we're starting to socialize those into the market. I was in New York last week at the Immuno-Oncology 360 conference, where we met a large number of existing and potential new customers, and where we road tested some of these new materials successfully. Next slide, please. So just to talk about our mission. So given the strength of our platform from a scientific basis, the robustness of the results it's produced, and the areas that we think we can really have an impact on both our customers, but in broader medicine terms, we believe that we can enable precision medicine using our platform. And this could discover novel biomarkers. It potentially could discover novel drug targets in the future through the idea of functional autoantibodies. So these are autoantibodies that are directly associated with a patient response in a clinical trial to a novel therapeutic, and as well as stratifying patients into clinical trials to make them more efficient. In addition, we've seen interest in the platform in drug discovery in particular, where it could be used as an orthogonal additional biological validation of traditional high throughput screening methodologies using new technologies in proteomics, whole throughput genomic screens, and other slightly more esoteric areas like RNA-seq analysis. Our vision is to become globally recognized experts in this technology, and which will enable breakthroughs in precision medicine, which would benefit ultimately patients. Next slide. So in terms of our core values, so we went through an exercise with the whole company looking at what our core values should be, and our core values, as we've decided, are to lead with science. So we are a science-led company. I believe that the quality of our scientists in Germany and our lead scientists is global, is world-leading in our area of expertise. Unite to create an impact. We are a global business. We're distributed across the US, Europe, and it's very important to me personally that we are a united team and that the culture of the business is an integrated, inclusive one. So I was really pleased to see the company vote for this particular value, and then enjoy the challenge. I personally have really enjoyed the challenge of the last 7 months here at ONCIMMUNE, and I'm really excited about our future and looking forward to helping create that future. And I think enjoying the challenge is a really key aspect of any healthy company. And then underpinning these core values are the sort of other areas that we as a company have agreed to operate to, and that is to be brave, try the unknown, prioritize health, create opportunities for ourselves as well as for the market, honour our commitments, this is very, very important to me, deliver quality, and obviously work with integrity. Next slide, please. To that end, we have also been successfully growing our commercial team since I last reported to you. So we now have just started our fifth member of the commercial team in Europe. Here in Europe, we added a BD, actually she's an associate director underneath our head of BD EU, and she started this week. We plan an additional business development hire in the States. So ultimately we will have a team of 4 in the US and 2 in Europe. We may in the future add somebody in Asia Pac, but that's to be decided. And then finally, we are adding a financial controller into the team, and I'll let Martin just briefly explain the rationale for that.
Yeah, sure. So as we mentioned previously, we went through a year of change. I think we could probably characterise FY24 as being a year of stabilisation.
Yeah.
And part of that stabilisation is to make sure that not only are we growing, in our outward-facing departments such as the BD team that Martin's just mentioned, but also strengthening what we have internally as well. So I'm recruiting at the moment for a group financial controller to come and join the finance team, and that will be a key role for us. Obviously, we're a relatively small team, but a key role for us to make sure that we can continue kind of improving things financially for the business going forward.
Thank you, Martin. Next slide, please. So progress against strategy. In summary, so we are gaining commercial traction in our market. I believe that the new strategy I presented last year is already bearing fruit and illustrating that we are in the right areas commercially. We did a review of that strategy recently, which is the result of the slide I showed you, showing progress against those strategic goals, and also an interest and a renewed focus into longevity and aging. We will continue to review our strategy quarterly to see what's working, what's not working, and how we can tweak it. Our leadership team, new leadership team, has been in place for 7 months. I believe that we have already achieved quite a lot in that time in terms of reviewing the business top to bottom, financially and operationally and commercially, and starting to bring things into play that make this business much more nimble, fit for purpose, and with stronger financial controls as well. So as I said, we've signed 7 new contracts in FY24. I believe we have a strong pipeline of further opportunities behind that. The build out of the commercial team, as I've mentioned, is nearly complete, with 1 new hire planned for later this year, but early in our FY25. We've already mentioned that we are going to hire a group financial controller with audit experience to really support Martin and free him up to do some other more interesting things, I hope. And we've completed a full review of that operational capability and cost base. I'd like to announce some forward-looking statements about revenue for our FY24. We're expecting revenue to be approximately £3 million for the year, a growth rate of 150% over the prior year, and at least £1 million higher than the platform in Germany has ever achieved before. We believe that we have already around 75% of that forecast in hand, and I can confirm that the majority of the samples against those projects have already been received or are expected imminently. This, I think, is partly as a result of changing the commercial structure of some of our contracts, which have added a stick and a small carrot to our partners for sample delivery. I think in the past we've suffered a bit from delays in samples being delivered, and we have worked very hard on that particular aspect, again to ensure higher quality and more robust revenue streams. So with that, I think that's the last slide. I'd just like to sum up. So in summary, and I think Martin mentioned this, I believe this year has been a year of obviously root and branch review of the business, resetting the business for commercial success, putting in place both the operational tools and the strategic tools to enable that success. And this is really about relaunching and refocusing the business. This is to set us up for exciting growth next year in our FY25 and a pathway to profitability, which I believe is very possible. I'm very excited about the prospects for the business. I think we are setting it on the right path. I've really enjoyed the journey today, and I'm really looking forward to the next sort of period of operations. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you both very much indeed for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the top right corner of your screen. While the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via our investor dashboard. Gentlemen, as you can see, we have received a number of questions throughout today's presentation, and if I may now hand back to you to kindly ask you to read out the questions, give responses where appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Okay, so I'll read out the questions. Thank you for submitting them. So interested to understand the approximate level of revenue required to avoid using cash reserves, i.e. at what point is the business self-sustainable and when is that expected? So I guess I can... So as I mentioned in my part of the presentation, our fixed cost base is between £5 and £6 million. So really, and as I mentioned, we have largely a fixed cost structure within the business. We mentioned that we've done a thorough operational review of the business that has concluded that in order to sustain the growth that we expect in the coming years, we don't need to make significant investments in the lab in Germany, for instance. And so really it's around that kind of £5 or £6 million level to get us to the point where the business is self-sustainable. In the meantime, of course, we do have the cash I mentioned that we exited FY23 with the 3.2 million, and we have the escrow funds due to us in May this year. So that will assist us from a cash flow point of view. In terms of when it's expected, again, I think we've kind of touched on that. We expect this year to be around 3 million level, as Martin mentioned, and obviously beyond that, we would expect to be getting closer to that sort of 5 or 6 million level in order to make the business self-sustainable. Okay. Right, I'll hand over to Martin on this one. How are you balancing your strategy, particularly in terms of balancing short-term priorities with longer-term value creation?
So as I said, our current focus is really on the short to medium term. So we're focusing on developing those offerings and those commercial opportunities that either we already have significant expertise in, or we have significant KOLs engagement on. The medium-term opportunities, and I think IGE would have been in that bucket, we've already made significant progress on. And my view is very much that for those newer opportunities, I'd far rather do those with a paying partner than for us to actually generate data for ourselves at our cost with a KOL partner. I won't rule that out though for certain things that we feel are commercially imperatives, and we are having some discussions, strategic discussions with potential partners to that end. But for the most part, I've been very pleased to see that we've generated commercial deals to help us develop some of those capabilities, and that's really the way forward, the most efficient way forward for us to do it.
Yeah, and that kind of leads on to the next question, which is, are you expecting to close any strategic deals during this calendar year? And if so, is there a likelihood of upfront payments?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would hope we can close a strategic deal this year, and the structure of that deal will be whatever it is. Obviously, we would want to structure the deal as advantageously to the business as possible, and we would be able to provide some details on release of the notification of that deal being signed.
Okay. So next question is, having reviewed the business, what, if anything, do you need to execute the growth strategy, and how much pivots on the sales and commercial teams?
Can you reread the question?
Yeah, sure. So having reviewed the business, what, if anything, do you need to execute the growth strategy, and how much pivots on the sales and commercial teams? So
yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, so basically we are implementing what we feel we need to achieve commercially, and a lot of that does pivot on the commercial teams, the strength of the team, the size of the team, the markets they engage in, and that's why we put a lot of focus and emphasis on hiring high quality people into that team and getting those up and running as quickly as possible. So generally speaking, with new salespeople, you do allow them a 3-month ramp period where they're getting to know the technology, understand the company, and be able to articulate it to their potential customer base. But I'm also setting up systems and processes behind the team to help them. So we have obviously the marketing, the new materials. We're doing a disease area focus at various periods through the rest of the year to support the team. And we have also got some market analytics behind the team as well to help with things like customer identification, segmentation, so that we are being targeted on who we reach out to and how. We've also signed up to a number of conferences. We, as I said, we're at the Immuno-Oncology 360 conference just last week in New York. We are also going to be at Bio in June in San Diego and Force with the entire commercial team, and where I would hope that we can achieve on average 20 to 30 meetings per team member at Bio with both new and existing customers. So that will be a big emphasis for the business. So hopefully what you can see is that we're trying to set up for success commercially, both in terms of being targeted, but also having scale. I was at a commercial team meeting on Monday where, although some of the team are still relatively new, I can tell you that the number and quality of discussions we're having in the marketplace is already several levels higher than it's ever been, which is really encouraging to see. And I think that the way that we are building our forecast models up, that is reflective of that process.
Okay.
Sorry, very long answer.
So I'll give you a break from speaking now. So the next question is probably one for me to answer. So how has the first year of the Freenome minimum spend been split between FY23 and this full year? So the Freenome MSA was put in place at a similar time to the disposal of the Nottingham facility. So that was in the latter half of May. And so we count the Freenome revenue on a monthly basis from that point. So for the last 3 months of FY23, we had Freenome MSA revenue in the account, so that will be contributing to the numbers that you've seen in the annual report. And then for this FY24, of course, we have a full 12 months of that revenue in the hopper for Freenome. Okay. I think that was it.
That was all the questions.
For questions, yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you both for addressing all those questions for investors today. And of course, the company can review all questions submitted today, and we will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. But before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to the company, Martin Goldstone, could I please ask you for a few closing comments?
Yeah, as I said before, really, I'm enjoying the journey. I'm very excited about the future prospects of our business. I believe that we have set the business in the right path, and we are enabling it with the right people and the right tools and the right strategy to be successful.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you will now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the board can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of ONCIMMUNE Holdings PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning to you all.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.